In the vast and endless silence of the Pacific, war was not only fought above the waves, it was waged beneath them. An invisible war, fought in the crushing blackness below. Long before the world had heard of a small American ship called the USS England, men had already vanished into these depths, unseen, unfound, and unburied. The Pacific War had begun in fire. Pearl Harbor, December 7th, 1941. The rising sun carried shadows across the water that would not fade for years. But as the great ships burned in Hawaii, another enemy, quieter, deadlier, slipped away into the sea. They were the Kaigan Sensuiti, the submarines of the Imperial Japanese Navy. They would become predators in the DAC, hunting convoys, striking without warning, and disappearing before the surface even knew what had happened. For the Allies, it was a nightmare with no face. A single torpedo could erase 100 men in an instant. And so the war beneath began. Slow fade, low rumble of sonar pings growing faster. By early 1942, the Pacific was a graveyard of ships. Japanese submarines roamed from the Indian Ocean to Australia, even to the western coast of America. Cargo ships, tankers, warships, all had one thing in common: none saw the enemy coming. The U.S. Navy was powerful, but it was not ready for a war under the sea. The great battleships could not dive. The mighty carriers could not detect what they could not see. And the sailors who patrolled the convoy routes felt it, that creeping terror, the sense that death might come from below, at any moment. By 1943, the Navy had learned the hard way. Brute strength alone could not protect convoys. They needed speed, precision, and detection. They needed hunters who could listen to the ocean and strike before the predator did. So, from American shipyards came a new class of vessels, destroyer escorts. Smaller than destroyers, lighter, faster to build, and armed for one purpose: hunting submarines. Among them would be a ship destined to make history. Her name would be remembered by admirals and sailors alike, not for her size, nor for her power, but for her accuracy, her discipline, and her will to fight. She was the USS England, DE 635. The USS England was born not in glory, but in steel and sweat. Built in the Bethlehem shipbuilding yards of San Francisco, she was commissioned on December 10, 1943. She was a Butler-class destroyer escort, 306 feet long, 1,400 tons, with a crew of just over 200 men. Her engines could push her through the waves at 24 knots. Her radar could see where the eye could not. And beneath her deck lay the weapon that would make her name immortal, the Hedgehog. A new invention, it fired a salvo of 24 small bombs in a spread ahead of the ship. Unlike depth charges, these bombs didn't explode unless they hit the submarine directly. That meant precision, not guesswork. The men who would use it were young, many just out of high school. They were sons of farmers, mechanics, and shopkeepers. But they would become the deadliest submarine hunters of the war. The England's commanding officer was Lieutenant Commander C.W. Hamilton, calm, methodical, sharp. His second-in-command, Lieutenant J.G. W.B. Pendleton, was the son of a naval officer, raised on salt and discipline. Beneath them, sonar men, gunners, radio operators, cooks, engineers. Each man would come to know the other's heartbeat. They drilled day and night. They learned to hear the ocean as if it spoke a language of its own. Every ping, every echo, every flicker of light on the sonar screen could mean life or death. Contact bearing 180, range 2,000 yards, possible submarine. It was a rhythm: ping, echo, range, depth, bearing. Soon, it would be more familiar to them than their own names. By early 1944, the tide of war had turned. The U.S. Navy was on the offensive, island hopping across the Pacific, closer and closer to Japan. But the Japanese Navy still had a deadly weapon: its submarine fleet. Unlike German U-boats, Japan used its subs to attack warships, not merchantmen. They were fast, long-range, and crewed by veterans. Their mission: slow the American advance, cut the supply lines, and bleed the fleet from below. And somewhere, deep in the South Pacific, a Japanese convoy of submarines, the IGO Group, was gathering to strike again. The United States would not allow it. From intercepted messages, U.S. intelligence, known as Fleet Radio Unit Pacific, had broken the Japanese codes. They knew where the subs would be. They just needed ships to hunt them. On May 18, 1944, Orders came down from Admiral William F. Halsey's command. Task Group 30.4 was to proceed to the waters northeast of the Solomon Islands. Their mission: find and destroy the enemy submarines before they could reach their targets. Among the ships in the group, 3 destroyer escorts: USS England, USS Raby, and USS George. Together, they would become the most lethal trio in the Pacific. But history would remember only one name. The USS England was a small ship, but in the next 13 days, she would change the balance of power beneath the Pacific. She would sink 6 submarines, one after another, faster than any ship in history. And for every man aboard her, the line between hunter and hunted would blur until only instinct remained. This is her story. She slid down the ways in a shower of sparks and spray, a newborn ship amid a nation at war. Her gray hull still smelled of paint and oil. Her decks were raw pine beneath the feet of men who barely knew one another. To the admirals, she was just another hull number, DE 635. To the men who would live within her steel skin, she was England. They learned her heartbeat, the slow pulse of her engines, the chatter of gears, the hum of her radar dish sweeping the horizon. They practiced battle drills until their throats were raw from shouting orders. Every man aboard understood that when the siren wailed, there would be no time for hesitation. The captain drilled them relentlessly. He knew that the sea forgave nothing. One missed bearing, one misheard command, and the ocean would swallow them whole. Below deck, the mess hall smelled of coffee and diesel. Men played cards on overturned ammunition boxes. They laughed, but their eyes always drifted toward the bulkheads, thin sheets of steel between life and a cold grave. They were ready, though they didn't yet know what for. The art of anti-submarine warfare was new, experimental, and merciless. The destroyer escorts were fitted with a device called ASDIC, an alien sonar that sent out rhythmic pings into the deep. When those pings bounced back, operators could hear the ghost of something solid beneath. The enemy could hear it too, a metallic heartbeat announcing that death was searching for them. The England's sonar men became musicians of destruction. They could tell by tone and echo whether the contact was fish, wreck, or submarine hull. They spent hours in dark rooms, headphones clamped tight, listening to the ocean's whispers. One of them, Seaman First Class Joseph Mayer, wrote in his letter home, "You start to feel like the sea is alive. It talks to you, and you have to listen close or it'll fool you." That was the skill that would soon save their lives. Before glory came monotony. For months, England escorted convoys between Pearl Harbor and the Western Pacific. Long days of scanning horizons, endless nights of watch rotations. The crew fought exhaustion, not the enemy. They called it the dull edge of war. But each voyage made them sharper. They learned to keep perfect station at night, to maintain formation through storms, to run at battle stations for hours without relief. The destroyer escort became an extension of its men, a living organism of rivets, wires, and will. By May 1944, the war in the Pacific had reached a turning point. The U.S. Navy had crushed Japan at Midway and was driving toward the Marianas. But Japanese submarines still haunted the routes between the Solomons and New Guinea. Deep within a nondescript building in Pearl Harbor, American codebreakers, Fleet Radio Unit Pacific, cracked a series of encrypted Japanese messages. They revealed a planned submarine supply operation between Truk, Rabaul, and Bougainville. 6 subs would rendezvous to transport weapons, food, and troops. Admiral Halsey read the report and scrawled a single note in the margin: "Send hunters." Task Group 30.4 was formed. Its heart would be 3 small destroyer escorts, USS George, USS Raby, and USS England. The orders were direct: find them, destroy them, leave none to return. May 18, 1944. The sun fell through a curtain of haze as the 3 American escorts began their patrol. They moved like shadows themselves, sonar scanning, radar sweeping. For 24 hours, they found nothing. But on the morning of May 19th, at 1,300 hours, the England's sonar operator froze. Contact bearing 165, range 1,500 yards, strong retain. Captain Hamilton's voice cut through the air. "Helm, come right. Bring us over the contact. Prepare Hedgehogs." The crew snapped to their stations. Engines growled, depth charges armed. The sea, moments ago calm, now held a predator below, a Japanese transport sub, I-16. For 20 minutes, England circled, gauging the target's depth and course. The sonar trace danced across the screen, elusive, agile. Hamilton waited until he could hear the rhythm of its movement, then gave the order, "Fire Hedgehogs." The bombs left their racks in a spread ahead of the bow, plunging into the water. Silence followed. Then, a single, enormous detonation. The ocean erupted in a column of water and oil. The sonar screen went blank. The I-16 was gone, 106 men with her. The England had drawn first blood. The crew cheered, but the captain's voice over the loudspeaker was calm. "Gentlemen, that was our job. We may have to do it again." He was right. The next target was already on its way. 3 days later, May 22nd, another intercept placed submarine IO-106 along the same route. England, Raby, and George fanned out. At dawn on the 23rd, the sonar pings returned again. The target maneuvered violently, trying to slip beneath the thermal layer, the thin band of temperature change that could bend sonar waves and hide a submarine. But the England sonar team had practiced this 100 times. They tracked the faint echo until it thickened into certainty. Fire 1. 24 Hedgehog bombs descended. At 230 feet, 3 made contact. The explosion lifted the bow from the water. IO-106 broke apart under the pressure. The ocean swallowed her whole. Days blurred together. Sleep became a rumor, coffee a substitute for blood. May 24th, another contact. IO-104, detected by USS George. England moved in, attacking in coordination. 2 passes, 3 detonations, another sub gone. By now, the crew no longer shouted. They only stared at the rising slick of oil and debris, quietly counting the seconds. May 26th, IO-116. This time, the Japanese fought back. The sub fired torpedoes blindly upward, white wakes cut across England's bow. The helmsman spun the wheel hard over. 2 torpedoes missed by less than 30 yards. Moments later, England fired again. A full pattern. All 24 bombs hit. The underwater shockwave echoed through the hull like thunder in bone. For submarines. 7 days. In the logbook, Captain Hamilton wrote only 9 words. Contact destroyed. Sub sank. Crew performed flawlessly again. By now, Japanese command realized something catastrophic was happening. Their IGO group was disappearing one boat at a time. Desperate radio transmissions revealed confusion and fear. Enemy hunter escort operating near New Ireland cannot evade. Submarines IO-106, IO-104, IO-116 lost contact. For Japanese submariners, morale collapsed. They began to call the unknown American ship the Sea Ghost. May 27, 1944. England's sonar picked up another faint trace, bearing 247 degrees, range 1,900 yards. The ship turned to engage. But the ocean fought back. Heavy seas, rain, and static interference made detection nearly impossible. For 5 hours, England's crew pursued an echo that came and went like breath. Each time they lost it, they recalculated and ran the pattern again. At 0212 hours, the contact steadied. Hamilton gave the order. The Hedgehogs fired. The sea lit up in white foam. When the echoes returned, the screen showed only bubbles. IO-108 was gone. The men stayed at the dark water. No cheers now, only exhaustion and the weight of what they had done. May 31st. The trio of escorts had been at sea for nearly 2 weeks, running on willpower and adrenaline. At dawn, radar picked up a surface blip, a submarine charging batteries. The ships accelerated, closing the gap. IO-105 dived. The hunt began. For 6 relentless hours, the 3 escorts took turns attacking. Each time England dropped a pattern, the sub dodged, dove, and resurfaced. It became a duel of patience, machine against instinct. Finally, at 1,440 hours, England's sonar man caught a clean return. Steady contact, range 900 yards. Fire. 24 Hedgehogs plunged forward. A half-second later, a string of detonations thundered up through the deck. IO-105 disintegrated at 180 feet. The ocean rolled, silent again. The war beneath them was, for a moment, over. In just 13 days, one small destroyer escort had sunk 6 submarines. I-16, IO-106, IO-104, IO-116, IO-108, and RO-105. No other ship in history would ever match that record. When England returned to port, her hull was streaked with rust and salt. Her crew was gaunt, eyes hollow from sleepless nights, yet steady. Admiral Halsey sent a message that became legend. There'll always be an England in the United States Navy. The ship continued to serve until 1945, protecting convoys and striking targets around Okinawa. Later that year, during the invasion campaign, a Japanese dive bomber found her. A single bomb struck near her engine room. Flames consumed the small ship that had destroyed so many enemies below the waves. Rescue ships arrived within minutes. Most of the crew survived. The England sank gently, her bow rising once before sliding beneath the surface. It was almost poetic, a hunter claimed by the same ocean that had carried her victories. Years later, historians tried to explain how it happened, how one small ship achieved what fleets could not. Some said it was luck, others said it was intelligence. But those who served aboard and knew the truth. It was discipline. It was listening. It was a belief that no task was too small if it was done perfectly. Every Hedgehog salvo, every sonar report, every command executed without hesitation. That was the difference between life and oblivion. In the dark heart of the Pacific, 6 submarines sleep still. Their steel hulls rest on the ocean floor, silent witnesses to one of the most astonishing hunts in naval history. And somewhere above them, in the memory of every sailor who ever listened to a sonar ping, there echoes a single promise. There'll always be an England. The war never really ended for the men of the England. Even when the engines went silent and the guns were cleaned, the sound of those pings still lived in their heads. Each one carried memory, the ghost of a contact, the echo of a life taken far below. The England lay moored at Sea Adler Harbor, Manu's Island. Her hull was scarred, the paint blistered by salt and heat. But within those plates of steel, every rivet seemed alive, humming with the invisible vibration of what she had done. For the first time in weeks, the crew had real sleep. The bunks felt strange, too still, too quiet. No sonar pulses, no alarms. Only silence, and the beating of their own hearts. Some dreamed of the ocean floor, others of home, farms, city streets, the scent of summer rain. But all of them carried something new inside them, a weight they couldn't name. At dawn, an operations officer from Admiral Halsey's staff came aboard. He was young, immaculate, holding a clipboard thicker than his arm. He asked questions, the kind that never ended. How many Hedgehog projectiles were expended? What was the interval between detection and engagement? What bearing did you maintain during the second run? The crew answered mechanically, voices low, respectful. Each detail, each number, would be fed into the Navy's growing machine of knowledge, a new science of killing submarines. But outside the wardroom, the sea whispered as if amused. The ocean had been here before all of them, and it would remain long after. That evening, the men wrote, ink smudged by humidity, paper flecked with sweat. Each letter was a small attempt to make sense of something too vast to name. Boatswain's Mate Second Class James Lowell wrote to his wife in Ohio. They say we made history. I think we just did our job. I keep hearing the explosions in my sleep. They say we should be proud, but I mostly feel tired. Radio man Robert Kelly wrote to his mother. It's funny, I thought hunting subs would feel like revenge for Pearl. But when you see the oil rise and smell it on the wind, it doesn't feel like victory. It feels like something heavy you'll never wash off. In Tokyo, hundreds of miles away, a different silence hung in the air. Admiral Noboru Owada of the 6th Fleet stared at a map scattered with red ink. The lost boats of May 1944. 6 hulls gone. 6 crews lost. He could not understand how. Reports from surviving submarines described a small escort that attacked with uncanny precision. Owada's staff called it the Phantom Destroyer. They believed the Americans had built some new weapon, something that could see through darkness and depth. They were partly right. The weapon was not steel or explosive, it was discipline. Back in Pearl Harbor, in a windowless building known only as Station HYPO, codebreakers bent over reels of intercept tape. Messages from Japanese submarines, faint as whispers, flowed through their headphones. Young linguists, some barely 20, translated fragments, piecing together the movements of the enemy like archaeologists of war. Commander Joseph Rushford, the same man who had helped win Midway, walked among them in slippers, cigarette in hand. He paused at one intercept, All boats of IGO group lost contact, cause unknown. Rochefort exhaled slowly. He knew the cause. It floated somewhere near the Solomons, a small ship named England. Victory, in the Navy's reports, was measured in tonnage sunk and fuel expended. But among the crew, it was measured differently, in dreams. Sonarman Mayer began hearing phantom pings in his sleep. He would wake, heart pounding, certain he'd missed a contact. Others kept their bunk lights burning through the night, afraid of the dark silence. They had looked into the abyss, and it had answered back. When the Navy's engineers arrived to inspect England, they studied every inch of her sonar gear. The transducer, the firing circuits, even the Hedgehog mounts. Nothing unusual, nothing magical, just machines, perfectly maintained. It was the human element that made the difference, the patience of her operators, the timing of her helm, the captain's trust in his crew. A lieutenant remarked, "It's not that England had better tools. She just used them better than anyone else." That sentence would later appear in the Navy's training manuals. When shore leave came, most of the men went to the small canteen at Seattle. They, cigarettes, laughter that didn't quite ring true. They were young again for a few hours, dancing to a scratchy record, tossing dice on tabletops. But conversation always circled back to the sea. Someone would mention the first sub, or the way the ocean had boiled after the last hit, and the music would falter. War had changed them quietly. They had become old men in their 20s. Hamilton stood on the bridge one night. The harbor lights reflected on calm water. He was not thinking of medals or messages from Halsey. He was thinking of the faces he never saw, the men in those submarines, their last moments sealed by pressure and darkness. He murmured, "They were doing their duty, same as us." Then he turned away, unwilling to let the crew see the moisture in his eyes. The England had become a legend. But legends are never born from triumph alone. They rise from the quiet after, the echo that lingers when the guns fall silent. And beneath that silence, the Pacific still moved, deep currents carrying secrets, memories, and wrecks. The war beneath was far from over. Days bled into weeks. The England had become a study in waiting, the restless heartbeat of a ship that had tasted too much action too quickly. Somewhere on the horizon, war was still burning. But hey, time moved differently. The crew learned that victory could be its own kind of purgatory. Down in the sonar compartment, Chief Mayer ran a diagnostic cycle. The screen pulsed faintly green in the dim light. He listened for any distortion, any flaw in the echo. To him, every ping was personal, a memory of those impossible nights when the enemy had been real, close, deadly. A new recruit leaned over. "Chief, how do you tell a real contact from a false one?" Mayer smiled without looking up. "The real ones make your gut tighten before the machine even says so." Far across the ocean, the Japanese Sixth Fleet headquarters still struggled to understand how 6 of its submarines had vanished. In their war logs, the losses were attributed to enemy destroyers with new weapons. But inside the hearts of the surviving officers, a deeper fear had settled, that their own tactics had gone obsolete overnight. Admiral Owada issued new orders. The next wave of boats would travel farther east, change frequencies, alter depth patterns. But the ocean was vast, and the Americans were learning faster than anyone expected. At Pearl Harbor, news of England's record swept through the Pacific Fleet like wildfire. Newspapers back home wrote, "One destroyer escort sinks 6 subs. No ship has done the like." The story became legend before the men even returned to port. Yet none of that glory reached the mess deck. There, men played cards in silence, the air thick with cigarette smoke and exhaustion. Someone muttered, "We killed more submariners than most whole squadrons." Another replied softly, "Yeah, and they were sailors, same as us." Despite their temporary anchorage, Captain Hamilton insisted on nightly drills. He believed complacency killed faster than combat. Under red lighting, the crew practiced sonar sweeps, target tracking, and Hedgehog reloading. Mayer's team learned to interpret the faintest flutter of static as an approaching sub. The gun crews rehearsed depth charge patterns until their muscles remembered every motion. The sea outside was calm, but the captain's orders echoed through the ship. "Train like the enemy's still out there." Because he is. In a small operations hut, Commander Rochefort met with intelligence officers. On a chalkboard were drawn concentric circles around the Bismarck Sea. Pins marked the positions of England's kills. Rochefort tapped his pointer. She didn't get lucky. She found the pattern. The Japs are using predictable search lanes. If we can model that, we can hunt them before they even reach the shipping lines. Someone asked, then what do we name the tactic? Rochefort paused. Call it England Protocol. That phrase would soon appear in Navy anti-submarine manuals across the Pacific. Among the crew was a quiet machinist named Henry Cole, who carried a stack of unsent letters in his locker. He wrote to a girl back in Kansas he hadn't seen in 2 years. Every letter began with the same line, "Still afloat. Still thinking of you." He never mailed them. He said the ocean made promises it couldn't keep. When a buddy asked why he bothered writing, Cole replied, "So I remember what normal feels like." Intelligence from captured documents later revealed that the Japanese soon planned a retaliatory strike. They called it Operation Tatsumaki, Whirlwind. It would deploy decoy submarines and airborne scouts to lure American escorts into traps. But storms, fuel shortages, and the collapse of their code security meant the operation never truly began. By the time the plan reached the water, England was already en route to another patrol zone. Late one night, Hamilton sat alone in his cabin. On his desk lay a folder marked Confirmed Kills. He flipped through the reports. I-16, Row 106, Row 104, Row 108, Row 105, Row 107, 6. He whispered the number like a prayer, or a curse. He knew history would remember the victories, but not the faces of the men inside those steel coffins. He poured a small measure of whiskey, raised it silently to the dark sea beyond his window, and drank to them. Beneath 2,000 fathoms, the wrecks lay quiet. The pressure had crushed the hulls, sealing them into twisted memorials of iron and coral. Fish moved through the empty compartments like curious ghosts. The Pacific remembers everything. A sonar pulse, years later, would still bounce off those ruins, faint, distorted echoes of May 1944. Each echo was a reminder. War leaves traces no current can wash away. The England's engines roared again as new orders came through. The message was brief. Proceed to Espiritu Santo. Further assignment pending. No one said it aloud, but every man aboard knew what it meant. The hunt wasn't over. It never was. The sea never sleeps. It only pauses, long enough for men to believe it's calm. Then it changes again, reminding everyone aboard that peace is just the space between storms. The England steamed toward Espiritu Santo, her bow cutting through a steel-gray sea. For the first time since a legendary hunt, she carried no enemy in sight, only her own legend. But legends, Hamilton knew, could be dangerous things. The base was alive, dozens of ships at anchor, each one marked by the fatigue of war. Cargo vessels offloading ammunition, destroyers taking on fresh paint, tankers reeking of fuel. The England glided in among them like a prizefighter entering a hospital ward. A band played half-heartedly on the pier. Someone had arranged for a photographer. The men lined up, squinting under the tropical sun. Their faces didn't show pride, only a wary patience, as if they'd rather be anywhere else. When the flashbulb went off, Hamilton didn't smile. He was already thinking about the next patrol. In the operations tent, Vice Admiral Thomas Kincaid met the captain personally. The air smelled of paper and sweat. Maps covered every wall. Kincaid shook Hamilton's hand firmly. "You've given this fleet something it hasn't had in months, Captain. Proof that the enemy can be beaten at his own game." Hamilton nodded, expression unreadable. "We just did what any ship in our position would have done, sir." The Admiral studied him, then said quietly, "Maybe so, but none of them did it 6 times. There was silence, heavy, meaningful. Then, "We'll need you back out there soon. The Japanese are changing their routes. I need your crew ready." Hamilton saluted. Inside, he felt a familiar knot forming in his chest. The war didn't hand out breaks. In the engine room, Henry Cole wiped his hands on a rag and stared at the machinery around him. The engines were alive again, humming with restrained energy. He had memorized every bolt, every vibration. To Cole, the heartbeat of the ship was the only constant in this war. It drowned out fear, regret, even memory. When a young mechanic asked, "You ever think about the men we sank?" Cole replied without looking up, "I think about keeping these engines running. That's enough for one man." But when he laid down later that night, His dreams were full of bubbles and light fading into black water. Across the ocean, at a small naval base in Truk Lagoon, a Japanese officer named Lieutenant Commander Fujimura sat writing his final report. He had been captain of the IO-114, one of the few submarines to escape the England's patrol area. His handwriting was precise, almost serene. Our enemy is not stronger in numbers or weapons, but in their ability to land. Every loss teaches them faster than we can recover. He folded the report neatly, sealing it with a crimson stamp. It would never reach Tokyo. The convoy that carried it was sunk days later by American bombers. For the crew of the England, rest felt unnatural. Some volunteered for double watches just to stay occupied. Others started building small carvings from driftwood, tiny replicas of the ship they lived on. The ship's cook, Frank Delaney, began keeping a diary. He wrote, "The sea feels empty now, but it's never really empty. It watches. Sometimes, when the engines stop, you can hear it breathing." 2 weeks later, the telegram came through. England was to escort a convoy to the Philippines, a routine mission, on paper. But whispers spread fast. New submarine sightings off the Marianas. The Japanese had regrouped. Hamilton read the orders silently, then looked out toward the horizon. The same horizon that had delivered every victory, and every ghost. "We sail at dawn," he said. That evening, the crew gathered on deck. The air was heavy with humidity and unspoken fears. A phonograph played an old tune, "I'll Be Seeing You." Men hummed quietly, staring into the dark. Bosun Lowell passed around a flask. No one toasted. No one spoke. They didn't need to. Every man knew what the ocean might demand next. The next morning, England's screws turned once again. Waves foamed white around her bow as she left the safety of Espiritu Santo behind. To the Navy, she was an asset. To the Japanese, a phantom. To her own men, she was home, and a curse, and a promise. The Pacific stretched endlessly before them, blue and unknowable. Beneath it, somewhere, other steel predators waited. The war beneath the waves had no front lines, no flags, no boundaries. Only hunters and hunted, and the space between them measured in heartbeats and sonar pings. In the darkness below, another Japanese sub, IO-115, glided silently off. Her captain, unaware of the legend stalking the Pacific, adjusted his depth controls and plotted a course toward the convoy routes. The ocean between them, the same ocean that had swallowed 6 of his brothers, was already alive with sound. Faint sonar pulses echoed far away, like the heartbeat of destiny itself. And so it began again. The cycle of pursuit, the rhythm of war, the endless dance of man and machine beneath an indifferent sea. By the second week at sea, the routine of war had returned. Coffee boiled in steel mugs, typewriters clattered in the chart room, and the ocean stretched unbroken in every direction. But somewhere beneath that calm surface, another story was unfolding, one of metal, silence, and fate. On the bridge, Lieutenant Bill Knapp adjusted his binoculars. The horizon shimmered under the tropical sun, empty yet full of possibilities. Behind him, the helmsman called out heading corrections in a lazy rhythm. Hamilton leaned against the rail, hat tilted low. "Hamilton, anything?" Knapp, "Nothing but mirage, say." Hamilton, "Good. Nothing's the hardest thing to see." Down below, in sonar, Chief Mayer tapped a cigarette on the edge of the console. He didn't smoke, just like the sound. He listened to the rhythmic ping echoing back, each return painting an invisible picture in his mind. Near midnight, the ocean changed tone. Mayer leaned forward. The pitch of the echo shifted slightly, a tremor at the edge of hearing. He frowned. "Mayer, bridge, sonar. I've got an intermittent contact bearing 085. Could be thermal, could be metal." Hamilton, "Calm, mark it. Keep a fix." The England slowed to half speed. The crew moved as one, no shouting, only quiet precision. It might be a whale, a rock formation, or another submarine. For 30 minutes, they listened. Then the sound faded, gone as suddenly as it appeared. Hamilton exhaled. "Hamilton, false alarm, Chief." "Mayer, maybe, say. Or maybe it's just holding its breath." The line sent a shiver through the watch section. At that very hour, 3,000 miles away in Tokyo, Admiral Owada met with his senior staff. A map of the Philippine Sea lay between them. Black markers showed lost submarines, Red lines traced new routes for the few that remained. Oh, water, we cannot lose the sea lanes entirely. If the Americans cut us off here, Japan starves. A young staff officer proposed deploying the new Kaib-type decoy subs, tiny craft meant to draw fire. Owada nodded slowly. Owada, do it. Let them chase shadows if they must. He looked toward the window, where rain streaked the glass. Owada, softly, but there's one ship they will never forget. He meant the England. Back aboard the England, daylight returned with the smell of diesel and salt. The captain ordered a Hedgehog firing drill. Racks clanked. Men shouted timing calls. The deck vibrated as dummy projectiles splashed harmlessly into the blue. Every man knew the rhythm: detect, track, fire, reload. They could perform it blindfolded. That mastery was their shield. Later, over coffee, Mayer said to the XO, "It's the waiting that kills you. The fight's easy, it's the silence after." The XO nodded, staring into his cup. He didn't disagree. The radio crackled just after noon. Radio man Kelly rushed to decode the cipher. He handed the paper to Hamilton. Intelligence believes new enemy subs operating near truck. Maintain patrol. Report contacts. Priority 1. Hamilton folded the message carefully. So much for a quiet cruise. The order meant another sweep through waters still littered with wrecks from the previous hunt. Every man on board understood. Lightning might strike the same place twice. 200 feet down, the Japanese submarine IO-115 continued her slow crawl eastward. Her captain, Lieutenant CMDR Kuroda, was a disciplined officer, calm, deliberate. He had heard the rumors of an American escort that destroyed 6 of his comrades. Superstition spread even among his men. One whispered, "The sea itself fights for them." Kuroda silenced him with a glance. "The sea fights for no one. Remember that." He ordered a deeper dive and plotted a new course, one that would, by cruel coincidence, intersect England's path within 48 hours. That evening, the England steamed through an ocean so still it seemed frozen. Stars burned above like lanterns. The crew moved quietly, speaking in low tones. Hamilton stood alone on the bridge, the wind tugging at his uniform. He thought of home, of a field in Pennsylvania, of his wife waiting with unanswered letters. Then he looked at the horizon and saw only the faint glow of lightning far away. Hamilton, to himself, there's always a storm somewhere. The radar operator called out softly. "Weather system forming north-northwest, Captain. Could hit us in 12 hours. Hamilton smiled faintly. "Then we'll let the ocean remind us who's boss." They didn't know it yet, but that storm would become their ally. A curtain of chaos hiding hunter and prey alike. And in that chaos, history would repeat itself. The sea had changed. What had been glass-smooth hours ago was now heaving and restless, as if something ancient below had turned in its sleep. For USS England, the ocean was no longer a mirror but a battlefield made of water and air. Waves slapped the hull like angry hands. Spray lashed across the deck. Hamilton's voice cut through the wind as he gave orders to secure topside gear. "Hamilton, tie everything down. We're not fighting the weather, we're dancing with it." Men scrambled, boots slipping on wet steel. Every loose line, every hatch, was a threat now. Below decks, the crew could feel the destroyer escort buck and twist under each wave, a living creature refusing to bow. Chief Engineer Thompson watched the gauges trembling. "She's holding, sir," he muttered to the XO. "Good," came the reply, "because the ocean's testing us." While England fought the surface chaos, something else lurked below. A shadow moving with deliberate silence. It was IO-115, Kuroda's submarine, blind in the storm but listening. His sonar operator strained to filter out the thunder above, detecting faint metallic echoes. "Operator, bearing 132, could be propeller noise." "Kuroda, depth." "Operator, too distorted, sir. The sea's screaming." Kuroda's eyes narrowed. The storm, he realized, was both his enemy and his shield. If an American ship was nearby, now was the time to strike, or to vanish forever. Hours later, England broke through the heart of the storm into an eerie stillness. Rain stopped. The clouds opened just enough for a pale moon to cast its ghostly glow over the foaming waves. Hamilton stood at the bridge window, drenched, exhausted, but alert. Hamilton, feels like we're in the middle of something's heartbeat. In sonar, Chief Mayer froze mid-sip of coffee. A new sound had appeared. Steady, rhythmic, unmistakably mechanical. Mayer, tense bridge, sonar contact. Bearing 132, range approximately 2,000 yards and closing. The words dropped like stones. Hamilton, battle stations. Alarms blared. Red lights flooded the compartments. Every man knew his role. No one needed to ask what to do. Kuroda heard the same distant churn through his own hydrophones, the predator and prey listening to each other's hearts through miles of salt water. Kuroda, flood tubes 1 through 4. Prepare for firing sequence. He knew he was facing a destroyer, perhaps the one from the rumors. But pride and duty outweighed fear. He ordered periscope depth. As the lens broke the surface, lightning illuminated the vast gray wall of USS England rolling in the distance. For a heartbeat, the two saw each other. Kuroda, quietly, there you are. IO-115 fired 2 torpedoes. They sliced through black water, leaving only a whisper of bubbles behind. Aboard England, sonar screamed. Mayer, torpedoes in the water. Bearing 132. 2 fish incoming. Hamilton slammed his hand on the intercom. Hamilton, hard to port. Full speed ahead. Decoy ready. Engines roared. The destroyer escort heaved over. Men clung to bulkheads as the ship tilted, the torpedo wakes flashing white in the night. One missed by a miracle, crossing the stern close enough to spray the fantail. The second exploded harmlessly astern, rucking the ship with a deep underwater concussion. Hamilton, grim, now it's our turn. The ship steadied, radar and sonar locking in. Mayer called corrections like a heartbeat. Bearing 135, range 1800, steady contact. Hamilton, prepare Hedgehogs, fire on my mark. The crew loaded the spigot mortars, 24 small explosives designed to detonate only on contact. At Hamilton's signal, the deck erupted in flashes. The Hedgehog projectiles arced out, vanishing into the sea. Everyone waited. 10 seconds. 20. Nothing. Then, 4 rapid detonations. A pause. 2 more. The ship vibrated with a sound. Mayer, directed. Breaking up noises detected. A cheer rose through the compartments, roar and disbelieving. Hamilton, quietly marked the position, another one down. For a moment, no one spoke. The sea was again silent, save for the wind and the hiss of rain returning at the edge of the storm. Hamilton looked out at the churning water. Hamilton, 6 in less than 2 weeks. God help us if we start keeping score. The crew went about their duties, subdued. Some whispered prayers. Others stared into the dark, wondering how many men had just died beneath those waves. Below deck, Mayer removed his headset, rubbing his temples. Mayer, say, I swear, it's like the ocean remembers. Hamilton nodded. Hamilton, maybe it does, Chief. Maybe it remembers everything. With the destruction of IO-115, USS England had sealed her place in naval legend. But for the men aboard her, glory was a hollow word. Each success carried ghosts, and each wave carried whispers of what lay ahead. For the war was far from over, and the hunter had not yet faced her greatest test. The storm had passed. What remained was silence, thick, heavy, almost sacred. The ocean was calm again, as if denying everything that had just happened. But the men aboard USS England knew the truth. Below that calm surface, another enemy might already be waiting. At sunrise, the crew held a short prayer on the fantail. The chaplain read softly, his voice carried away by the breeze. Even those who weren't religious bowed their heads. Somewhere out there, 6 submarines rested now, each a steel coffin filled with young men who had once believed in their own invincibility. After the ceremony, the men drifted back to their posts. No music, no chatter, only the distant whine of the wind through the antennas. In sonar, Chief Mayer turned the gain knob slowly, listening to the ocean's quiet rhythm. The sea, for now, had no heartbeat but their own. Mayer, softly, 6 boats gone. How many more will they send? XO, as many as they have left, Chief, until someone tells them it's over. Fire across the Pacific, in Tokyo's naval ministry. Admiral Owada stared at the map of the Philippine Sea one last time. Red markers marked each submarine lost, 6 black crosses now punctuating the waters around New Ireland. The room smelled of ink, tobacco, and failure. One of his aides broke the silence. "Aide, say, the Emperor's staff requests an update." "Owada, tell them the wolf pack is gone." He paused, tapping his pen against the map. "Owada," grimly, "but the Americans, that ship, the England, it's like a curse upon the sea." Life aboard the destroyer escort settled into the old rhythm again. Watch rotations, coffee, and endless scanning of an empty horizon. The men joked quietly now, their laughter edged with exhaustion. Each victory had added another weight to carry. Hamilton stood outside the bridge, coat collar turned up against the wind. He sipped his coffee and watched a gull circle above the ship. Hamilton, to XO, hard to believe this little ship's made history. XO, history doesn't feel this tired, sir. Hamilton, no. But it always costs the same. The engines throbbed beneath their feet. The smell of salt and diesel had become part of their skin. At noon, Radio Man Kelly ran up the bridge ladder holding a new message form. "Kelly, Captain, urgent signal from Pearl." Hamilton read it quickly. The words were brief but heavy. "Intelligence indicates surviving enemy submarines may attempt coordinated attack on convoy routes near Truk. All available escorts to redeploy immediately." Hamilton handed the message to the XO. "Hamilton, they're not done yet." XO, "Guess neither are we." Within the hour, England was steaming west again, toward the very heart of enemy-controlled waters. The waters near Truk Lagoon were notorious. Wrecks from earlier battles still scarred the seabed, destroyed cruisers, shattered aircraft, and the bones of fleets that had once ruled the Pacific. To the sonar operators, the region was a labyrinth of echoes, ghosts of ships long gone. As England entered the zone, Maya's scope came alive with reflections that danced and shimmered. "Maya, it's like listening to a graveyard, sir. The pings come back wrong." Hamilton, "That's because everything down there's still listening, Chief." The men didn't laugh. Not this time. On the ocean floor, one final Japanese submarine waited, I-47, commanded by Lieutenant Commander Shinji Masuda, a quiet man known for patience and precision. He had followed the reports of England's rampage, and his orders were simple. Find her. Sink her. Masuda had studied England's tactics. He knew how she moved, how she hunted. So he planned to do the opposite. He would wait in silence, in the ruins of Truk's graveyard, until she came to him. Days passed. Then, just after midnight, his sonar picked up a faint mechanical from operator, bearing 210, faint, constant RPM pattern. Masuda, steady course. Hold your breath, boys. USS England moved through the lagoon's outer edge under low speed. The crew had been at battle readiness for so long that tension felt normal now. Suddenly, Maya's scope twitched. A sharp, rhythmic beat, a pattern too precise to be nature. Maya, contact bearing 210, range 2,800 yards, possible submarine. Hamilton, bring us around. Sonar, hold contact. Maya, she's deep, say. Very deep. The captain frowned. A deep contact meant patience. They couldn't use depth charges effectively without risking their own hull in the narrow shallows. Hamilton, we'll coax her out. He ordered slow zigzag patterns, letting the destroyer's propellers send deliberate vibrations into the water. An invitation, or perhaps a taunt. Below, in I-47, Masuda listened to those vibrations and smiled slightly. Masuda, they are searching. They think we're asleep. Operator, sir, they are close. Masuda, good. Let them believe the hunt is theirs. He waited until the England turned broadside, exposing her flank. Then, calmly, he gave the order. Masuda, tubes 1 through 6, fire. 6 torpedoes slid into the darkness, fanning outward like predators. Up above, sonar screamed again. Maya, multiple torpedoes. 6 contacts inbound, fast. Hamilton, all engines full ahead. Hard starboard. The destroyer escort lunged forward, churning white water. Men braced against bulkheads. The ship vibrated like a struck bell as torpedoes sliced through the sea. One passed beneath the keel, close enough for the heat to register on the sensors. Another exploded prematurely, rocking the ship and knocking men to their knees. XO, She's still with us, Captain. Hamilton, then keep her that way. Now they had the range. Mayor tracked the submarine's lost bearing. Mayor, bearing steady at 210, shallow rise detected. She's coming up. Hamilton, Hedgehogs, ready. Fire. The weapons leapt from their racks in arcs of white fire, splashing down into the sea. Seconds stretched into eternities. Then came a single, massive explosion, deeper, louder, final. The deck shuddered, and a column of water rose high into the air. When it fell back, only oil and debris floated to the surface. Mayor, contact lost, sir, she's gone. Hamilton stared out the window, his voice low. Hamilton, another hunter who thought the sea would protect him. The men watched as the slick spread across the waves like a dark memorial. And so, the last of Japan's submarine wolf pack was gone. In less than 2 weeks, a single American destroyer escort had destroyed 6 enemy submarines, an achievement unmatched in naval history. But for the men aboard USS England, there was no celebration, only fatigue and silence and the endless sea ahead. The ocean had given them glory and taken something far greater in return. When dawn finally came, it was quiet. No alarms, no explosions, only the low growl of engines and the tired creak of steel. For USS England, the war had changed shape. The killing was over, but the weight of what had been done would not fade so easily. The sea was calm now, unnervingly calm. After days of battle, the stillness felt unreal, like stepping from a nightmare into an empty church. The men moved slowly about their duties. Paint was chipped, decks scuffed, faces hollowed by exhaustion. Yet there was a quiet pride too, the kind that needs no words. Hamilton walked the deck alone, his cap pulled low against the rising sun. He stopped near the bow, running his hand over the rail. Hamilton, softly 6 boats. 6 crews. Lord, keep them all. Behind him, Chief Mayor appeared, mug in hand. Mayor, we should be turning home soon, sir. Hamilton, we will. But not the same men who left. Mayor, guess no one ever is. The 2 men stood in silence, watching a line of flying fish skip across the calm water. In the mess, the crew sat around half-empty trays. Conversation came in fragments, stories of home, of girlfriends, of the baseball season they were missing. Seaman Reyes pulled a crumpled photograph from his pocket. His kid brother in a Little League uniform. Reyes, he'll never believe what we did out here. Bosun Miller, don't tell him about what we did. Tell him we came back. Laughter followed, faint but real, the first since the storm. The clatter of the teletype broke the calm. Radio man Kelly tore off a fresh strip and hurried to the bridge. Kelly, message from Subpack, cert official commendation. Hamilton read it aloud. USS England credited with destruction of 6 enemy submarines between the 19th of May and the 31st of May, 1944. Extraordinary achievement. All hands commended. Returned to base for refit and reassignment. The bridge erupted in restrained applause. Cheers mixed with disbelief. XO, we just got invited to history, Captain. Hamilton, history never sends return tickets. For days they steamed eastward toward Manus. The weather was kind, the sea gentle, as if the Pacific itself were letting them rest. At night, the ship's wake glowed faintly with bioluminescent plankton, a ghostly trail in the dark. Men leaned over the rails, mesmerized by the light. Reyes, whispering, looks like the souls of those subs following us. Miller, maybe they are making sure we get home safe. When England entered the harbor at Manus Island, ships from across the fleet signaled her arrival with flashing lights and horns. She was no longer just another escort. She was legend now. Reporters came aboard. Cameras clicked. Admirals shook hands. But Hamilton kept the ceremonies brief. Hamilton, let's remember what it cost before we celebrate what it earned. He declined a personal medal presentation until his crew could stand beside him. Every man received his share of recognition, every name recorded in the log of naval history. That night, after the reporters left and the harbor grew quiet again, the captain walked alone through the ship. He paused by the sonar room, the gun deck, the radio shack, each space humming with ghosts of recent days. He found Mayor cleaning his console. Hamilton, can't sleep either. Mayor, can't make it stop, say. The pings, I mean, close my eyes, still hear them. Hamilton, maybe we'll hear them the rest of our lives. Mayor, then I hope they fade slow. They shed a tired grin. In the quiet weeks that followed, the men finally found time to write. Stacks of letters filled the wardroom, apologies, confessions, promises. Some simply said, "Still hey." Hamilton's own letter was short. 6 down. All crew safe. Coming home soon. The ocean is endless, but we found our way through. He folded it, sealed it, and stared at the paper long after it was gone. The England had done what no ship before, or since, had ever done. But victory, like the sea, leaves salt on everything it touches. For every cheer at Manu's, there was a silent prayer whispered into the Pacific wind. And somewhere, in the depths they had conquered, the ocean carried the memory of all who had fought within it. By mid-June 1944, the war had shifted again. Across the Pacific, new offensives gathered momentum. Island after island fell under the steady push of the American fleet. And amid the thunder of the great carriers and battleships, one small destroyer escort carried a legend greater than her size. USS England, the ship that had sunk 6 submarines in less than 2 weeks, had returned from her hunt. She came into Pearl Harbor under a soft morning sun. The scars of battle were subtle, chipped paint, dented railings, a patched hull, but her flag flew high, bright against the sea breeze. As she passed the sunken outlines of Arizona and Oklahoma, the men on deck stood silently at attention. No orders were needed. They knew whose company they were entering. Hamilton, quietly, to the XO, we made it back through the same water they never left. XO, a good day to remember them, sir. A bugler on the pier began to play anchors away. Dock workers waved. Cameras flashed. But the men aboard England didn't cheer. They only nodded, eyes steady, humble in their triumph. Fleet Admiral Nimitz himself sent word from headquarters. He wanted to meet the officers personally. In the briefing room, he looked at Hamilton, a young captain with tired eyes and a voice worn thin by salt and responsibility. "Nimitz, you've done something no one thought possible." "Hamilton, we just did our job, Admiral." Nimitz, smiling faintly, "Then you've redefined what that job means." He shook every man's hand, officers, petty officers, seamen, one by one. No speeches, no pomp, just quiet respect between sailors who understood what it meant to face the sea and win. While the crew rested, England went into dry dock. Her hull was scraped clean, new sonar gear fitted, guns recalibrated, engines overhauled. Welders worked day and night, sparks falling like fireflies into the shadows. The shipyard workers had heard her story. They treated her like a veteran returning from the front, a relic and a hero at once. On her side, someone had chalked in white letters, "England expects." Hamilton saw it and didn't erase it. Hamilton, to Mayor, let them keep it. She's earned every letter. For the first time in months, the men had freedom, real, tangible freedom. They spilled into Honolulu's streets in fresh uniforms, blending into crowds of other sailors and Marines. There was laughter again, loud, unrestrained, human. They drank, danced, sent telegrams home. Reyes mailed the photograph of his brother with a new note, still alive, still chasing ghosts. Miller found a small bar where the jukebox played swing records. He stood there listening, smiling at the simple miracle of music. Yet even in those brief moments of peace, the war followed them like a shadow. Reyes, to Miller, feels strange, doesn't it? Like we left part of ourselves out there. Miller, maybe the sea keeps a little from everyone who crosses her. Weeks later, the Navy released the official citation. Typed on crisp parchment, it carried the seal of the Department of the Navy for extraordinary heroism in action against enemy submarines in the Pacific area. The USS England and her crew demonstrated unmatched courage, coordination, and skill, resulting in the destruction of 6 hostile submarines in 13 days. Their actions contributed significantly to the security of Allied operations and stand as a model of naval excellence. Each man received a copy. Many folded it into their lockers, others mailed it home. Hamilton kept his in a book on his desk, the pages already yellowed by salt air. One evening, long after the yard lights dimmed, Hamilton walked alone along the pier. The water lapped softly against the pilings. He stopped to look back at England resting in the dock, silent, proud, almost alive. A young ensign approached. Ensign, she looks smaller up close, sir. Hamilton, all heroes do. He turned to leave, then paused. Hamilton, she's earned her rest. But something tells me the ocean's not done with us yet. Weeks later, those words proved true. A coded message arrived at dawn. Orders for England to join Task Group 30.4 for convoy escort duties in the South Pacific. Her new mission: guard the vital supply routes that fed the Allied advance toward the Philippines. Hamilton read the message silently, then gathered his men. Hamilton, we've had our glory. Now we do what we were built for. We protect those who can't fight back. That's where the real war is. No one cheered, but every man nodded. They understood. Fame had found them once. Duty would define them forever. The legend of USS England spread quickly across the fleet. She was the hunter who never missed, the ship that outwitted the unseen enemy time and again. Sailors whispered her name with a mix of awe and superstition. But for those who served aboard her, the truth was simpler. They were ordinary men in an extraordinary moment, bound together by the sea and by fate. By late summer of 1944, the Pacific had become a chessboard of steel and salt. Allied ships, thousands of them, threaded narrow sea lanes between newly captured islands. Behind each of those routes, a fragile line of supply ships carried food, ammunition, and fuel, the lifeblood of the war. And into that ocean of uncertainty sailed the USS England once more. Her decks clean, her crew rested, but her soul still haunted by the 6 iron graves she'd left behind in the deep. At dawn, the convoy formed up, 10 cargo ships, 2 oilers, and a cluster of escorts. To port, the George Clymer, a transport heavy with Marines. To starboard, the Kitchen Bay, a baby carrier whose decks glimmered like an Acroft strip of silver. And at the center of the screen, the England, hull number DE 635, taking her position like an old wolf among the pack. Hamilton, on bridge, maintained spacing at 800 yards. Sonar watched double shifts. The sea's never empty, gentlemen, remember that. Below deck, sonar operators settled into their stations, headphones pressed tight, eyes on the green glow of cathode screens that pulsed with life. Every blip, every echo, every hollow return from the sea floor was a story waiting to be told, or a warning. Darkness came fast and heavy. Out here, the night was not quiet, it breathed. Waves rolled like dark lungs, and each gust carried whispers of unseen engines far below. The sonar hummed. Reyes adjusted his dials, eyes narrowing. Reyes, sigh, faint contact, bearing 147, range about 2,000 yards. Could be bottom bounce, but... Hamilton, or could be a ghost with teeth. Mark it. Slow to 12 knots. The England turned slightly, engines throttling down, propellers biting softly into the current. Men moved with rehearsed precision. They didn't talk. They didn't need to. Minutes passed. The contact vanished. A collective exhale. Mayor, probably a thermal layer reflection, Captain. Hamilton, maybe. Oh, maybe we just blink first. They logged the Phantom and moved on. Out here, even false alarms had weight. Each one reminded them that the ocean was alive, and it was listening. The next dawn was breathtaking. A golden horizon, flying fish skipping like silver coins tossed from God's hand. Men stood on deck, drinking coffee, half smiling at the sun's return. Reyes, grinning almost peaceful, sir. Hamilton, almost. That's when it's most dangerous. And then it happened. Sonar operator. Contact. Strong contact. Bearing 225. Closing fast. The calm shattered like glass. Contact. Hamilton snapped upright. Hamilton, all hands, battle stations. Sound general quarters. The ship erupted into motion, boots pounding steel, hatches slamming shut, guns pivoting to sea. Sirens screamed across the convoy as other ships braced for the unknown. The sonar trace grew stronger, closer, steady, purposeful. A submarine was approaching. Reyes, depth estimated 250 feet. Moving parallel to the convoy. Hamilton, it's lining up for a torpedo run. Get me Hedgehog ready. Patton Alpha, widespread. England banked hard to starboard, cutting across the convoy's flank. Spray flew from her bow as she bore down on the unseen predator. Below the surface, A Japanese submarine, I-55, slid silently, its commander scanning sonar for the perfect firing angle. The duel was on. The commander of I-55, Lieutenant Commander Tagami, adjusted his periscope, sweat beading on his forehead. Tagami, in Japanese enemy destroyer closing fast. She knows we're here. Prepare for silent running. Flood tubes 1 through 4. He lowered the scope and whispered to himself. So, the hunter returns. Back on the surface, England's crew steadied themselves. The Hedgehog gunners locked in. The sonar tone grew sharper, now unmistakable. Hamilton, range 900 yards, steady. Fire. Thunderous launch, dozens of projectiles screaming into the air before plunging into the water in graceful arcs. Seconds later, silence. Then, boom, 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 boom. A sequence of underwater detonations rippled through the sea. The bridge shook violently. Water geysered into the air. Reyes, shouting multiple hits. Contact breaking up. Mayor, sonar confirms collapse. Sir, we've got her. The men cheered, restrained but electric. Another sub, another name to carve into the legend of England. The I-55 never surfaced again. She sank in minutes, her steel hull collapsing under the weight of the Pacific. Dozens of men vanished, enemy sailors swallowed by the same ocean that had devoured so many before them. For the crew of England, it was victory, but not joy. Every explosion was a heartbeat ending somewhere in the dark. That night, Hamilton stood alone on the bridge. Hamilton, quietly 6 before, now 7. How many before the sea takes us? No one answered. Only the wind replied, carrying salt and silence across the deck. The sea, like war, never forgives arrogance. Victory had followed the England like a loyal shadow. 6 submarines, now 7, each kill a testament to skill, courage, and uncanny instinct. But the ocean, vast and patient, had its own reckoning to deliver, and it came not in the form of steel or gunfire, but wind. It began with pressure, invisible, subtle. The air grew heavy, the horizon blurred into gray. Barometers dipped, birds vanished. A strange stillness settled over the convoy. Mayor, checking instruments, pressures dropping fast. Captain, 29.3 and falling. Hamilton, keep an eye on it. These waters have moods. I've seen one change quicker than a torpedo run. Hours passed. The sky bruised from blue to violet, then to black. Lightning flickered on the edges of the world, and the Pacific began to growl. By nightfall, the storm had found them. Rain came sideways, stinging like needles. Waves rose like walls, slamming against the hull with monstrous force. Every few minutes, the ship's bow vanished beneath a surge of water, then clawed its way back up, trembling. The convoy scattered, each ship fighting for survival, their formations shredded by nature's fury. Hamilton, yelling over wind, reduced speed to 5 knots. Secure all hatches. Keep radar on short range. I don't want to lose anyone out there. Reyes, I say. Engineering reports water in the bilges, pumps running full. Sound, crashing waves, metal creaking, men shouting through wind. The destroyer groaned under the weight of the storm. Her deck tilted 30 degrees, then 40. Men clung to railings, soaked, terrified but resolute. Below decks, chaos reigned. Loose equipment slammed against bulkheads. Water pooled ankle-deep in corridors. The engine room glowed with red emergency lights as machinists fought to keep turbines running. Chief Engineer, through intercom, we're losing RPMs. Salt water in the intake filters. Hamilton, do whatever you have to. Just keep those screws turning. The England shuddered as lightning cracked directly above her. For a split second, the world turned white, a snapshot of men frozen against elemental fury. Then darkness returned, thicker than before. In that roaring chaos, Hamilton's mind drifted back to his first command, a training ship years before, in calmer seas. He remembered a mentor's words. A ship's true test isn't in battle. It's in the storm. Guns you can fire, but weather, you must endure. He smiled grimly at the thought, gripping the railing as another wave slammed over the bridge. Hamilton, to himself, we're enduring. Old man, we're enduring. By midnight, radar screens were half-blind. Interference crackled across every channel. The George climber was gone from sight. The oilers had fallen far behind. The sea had swallowed the convoy whole, scattering them like seeds in the wind. "Mayor, Captain, we're down to emergency bearings. No visual on any ship for 20 miles. Hamilton, then we ride it alone." No hesitation. No panic. Just the grim acceptance of sailors who had learned that sometimes the only way through hell is to steer straight into it. Near dawn, the wind dropped suddenly. The rain stopped. The world went eerily still. "Reyes, say, are we dead?" Hamilton, quietly, "No, son. We in the eye." All around them, the sea was smooth as glass, an illusion of peace, circled by black walls of cloud miles high. Lightning flashed silently within them, like ghosts trapped in glass. Men stumbled out onto deck, blinking through exhaustion and disbelief. For the first time in hours, they could breathe. But every sailor knew the second wall of the storm was coming. "Mayor, we've got maybe 30 minutes before it hits again." Hamilton, make them count. Check lines, reset pumps, and pray. It hit harder than the first. Winds over 100 knots ripped across the deck. Antennae snapped like twigs. A lifeboat tore free and vanished into the darkness. Men were thrown to the floor, crawling through torrents of freezing water. Hamilton, roaring, "Hold your stations. Tie yourselves off." A massive wave struck broadside. The ship leaned dangerously, groaning under the weight. For an agonizing moment, England hovered at the edge of capsizing. Time slowed. Every man aboard felt gravity tilt beneath his boots. Then, the ship heaved back upright, coughing water from her scuppers, alive but battered. By dawn, the storm had passed. Clouds broke apart like curtains revealing sunlight. The ocean shimmered again, deceptively gentle, hiding the violence it had just unleashed. England floated bruised but unbroken. Her radar mast was gone, her deck flooded, but her engines still turned. She had survived. Mayor, horse, exhausted, hull damage aft. Antenna destroyed, but she's still seaworthy. Hamilton, good. Let's find the others. If we're breathing, there might be two. In the Pacific, storms claimed as many ships as torpedoes. But England, as always, refused to die. She had survived depth charges, submarines, and now the wrath of nature itself. Her legend was no longer just about what she destroyed, but what she endured. The morning after the storm was not a sunrise, it was a resurrection. Clouds still smudged the horizon, but shafts of gold pierced through like divine forgiveness. Every man aboard the England stood quietly, watching that fragile light, knowing how close they'd come to becoming another ghost story told at sea. The Pacific stretched wide and indifferent around them. What had been a convoy was now a graveyard of scattered bearings. Somewhere out there, ships drifted crippled, others sunk unseen. But duty did not end with survival. Hamilton, horse, get the radar back online, even partial. Launch radio calls, low frequency, continuous loop. Someone's bound to answer. Mayor, I say, we'll start with bearings around last known formation. The destroyer's wounded mast groaned as sailors lashed a jury-rigged antenna in place, wires stretched between gun mounts, a Frankenstein's whisper of communication. Reyes hunched over the radio, tapping keys, listening to static that hissed like the ocean itself breathing. Reyes, sir, faint transmission. Morse code, slow, sounds like oiler kit can bay adrift, no power position unknown. Then nothing. Hamilton, plot it. If there's even a chance, we'll find them. By midday, England began a slow grid search. Her wake drew white lines over a gray ocean, methodical, relentless. Men scanned with binoculars until their eyes burned. Hours passed, nothing but sea. Then, at 1,400 hours, a lookout shouted, "Look at! Smoke off the port bow. 2 points low." Through the haze, a faint plume curled upward, black and broken. As they closed in, the wreckage came into view. A half-sunken merchantman, hull scorched, name barely legible, SS Denibola. Her deck was awash, lifeboats gone. Only one man clung to debris near the stain, waving weakly. Hamilton, get him aboard. Careful, he's hypothermic. Sailors pulled him from the sea. A young radioman, barely conscious, lips blue, fingers stiff. He whispered one word before passing out. Submarine. Silence fell on deck. Night came early, as if drawn by that single word. Reyes, quietly after the storm. Sir, they are still out there. Hamilton, they never left. The England went to battle readiness once more. No celebration, no adrenaline, just the cold precision of habit. Sonar pings began again, echoing into the abyss. Hours later, a faint echo. Sonar operator. Contact bearing 183. Range 1500. Depth 300. Moving slow. Hamilton, mark and follow. Let's make sure before we commit. The destroyer adjusted course, engines barely above idle. Men spoke in whispers, as if afraid to disturb the water. Then came another sound, not sonar, but human, a faint metallic clink echoing through the hull. Torpedo screws. Hamilton, snapping hardport. Full speed ahead. Alarm bells blare. Crew rushes. The ship surged just as two torpedoes sliced through the water astern, missing by yards. Their wakes foamed white in the darkness, vanishing into night. Hamilton, that's our confirmation. Hedgehog crews, stand by to fire. Reyes, sonar reacquired. Bearing 185, closing. Hamilton, fire on my mark. 3, 2, 1, fire. The sea erupted. Foam and flame mingled in one violent bloom. Moments later, sonar screens cleared. No echo, only static. Mayor, contact lost. She's gone, sir. Hamilton, another one for the deep. May they find peace down there. The rescued radioman, now recovering in the infirmary, opened his eyes as the ship settled into calm again. Radioman, weakly, you found us. Hamilton, softly, not all, son. But we found the ones who found you. Outside, the waves lapped gently against the hull. The sea that had tried to kill them now rocked them to rest, as if apologizing for its violence. Through storm and silence, through metal and mercy, the England kept her watch. She was no longer simply a destroyer. She had become something else entirely. A guardian, a myth, a living promise that in the vast, unforgiving Pacific, someone still hunted the hunters. War, like the sea, moves in waves. One storm ends, another begins, unseen, forming beyond the horizon. While England nursed her wounds and hunted lone predators, a darker shape gathered beneath the calm. In the northern reaches of the Pacific, the Imperial Navy was assembling something new, a wolf pack, an underwater armada meant to strike at the very arteries of the Allied advance. And the first warning did not come from radar, or scout planes, or spies. It came from sound, faint moss intercepted on an open frequency, drifting through the static like a ghost's whisper. Signal officer, unidentified transmission repeating on 12 MHz band. Japanese code, segment consistent with submarine Group A. Commander, Fleet Intelligence, Group A was destroyed months ago. Signal officer, then this is Group B, sir, and they are active again. The message, when decoded, was chilling in its simplicity. Attack will begin. South route. Convoy blood. Admiral Nimitz leaned over the table, eyes sharp behind steel-rimmed glasses. Nimitz, the England's proven she can sniff them out. She's fast, small, disciplined. Send her and the 60th Escort Division to intercept. No publicity. I want silence. Aid, understood, Admiral. Destination. Nimitz, the Philippine Sea. That's where the next shadow's coming from. A radio order flashed across the Pacific. At 2,200 hours, the England received it. Hamilton, reading quietly, proceed to intercept coordinates. Investigate suspected concentration of enemy subs. Engage and destroy. Mayor, another hunt, say. Hamilton, another storm. Lieutenant. The destroyer escort left port before dawn. Her hull patched, radar restored, deck scrubbed clean but bearing scars of salt and battle. Sailors lined the rails, silhouettes against a rising red sun. They didn't cheer. They just stared east, where danger waited like a black tide. She left behind calm waters and entered the unknown again. Her name now a legend whispered in every wardroom and ready room. Her crew bound not by glory, but by memory. Days later, intelligence confirmed it. A formation of 10 Japanese submarines, each armed with long-range torpedoes, converging toward the invasion routes. They moved in silence, coordinated by coded radio bursts, invisible wolves circling prey they could not yet see. Mayor, 10 subs, that's not a patrol, that's an army. Hamilton, then we fight an army underwater. The England and her sister ships spread out, forming a search line stretching miles across the ocean, a wall of sound and steel. For 3 days they found nothing, only empty echoes and whale song. Fatigue set in. The men became quiet, their movements mechanical. Reyes, to sonar man, you ever think maybe they're hearing us too? Sonar operator, if they are, they're waiting for us to blink first. Then, on the 4th evening, a hit. Sonar operator, contact, bearing 090, range 2000, depth 200, steady course. Hamilton, all hands to battle stations. Prepare Hedgehog. The ship turned hard, slicing through gentle waves that suddenly felt sharp as glass. Men strapped into their stations. The bridge fell silent except for the rhythm of sonar. Reyes, target moving slow. Possible recharging batteries. Hamilton, then is vulnerable. Let's make it count. Mayor, hit. Secondary explosions below. That's one of them. Cheers rose, brief and restrained, professional satisfaction, not celebration. They marked a position, logged the kill. The hunt continued. But now the pack was awake. Encrypted chatter spiked across frequencies. Other contacts appeared. Faint, distant, circling. The hunters had become the hunted. Hamilton, they're triangulating our pings. Shift frequency. Silent running. I want to dissipate. Reyes, I say. Power down auxiliary systems. We'll listen, not speak. The England glided through darkness, blacked out, every man whispering, every screw rotation counted. Below, somewhere unseen, Japanese captains turned their scopes, searching for the American phantom that had just slain one of their brothers. It became a duel of silences, each side listening for the other's breath, each heartbeat a risk, each ripple in the water a potential death sentence. For hours, no one moved. Only the slow, hypnotic rhythm of the ocean remained. Then, one sound broke through, the faint metallic echo of compressed air flooding torpedo tubes. Hamilton, they've spotted us. Starboard 30. Evasive. Torpedoes sliced the water. 3 streaks of white foam converging. The ship rolled, engine screaming. One torpedo passed astern, another ahead. The third detonated prematurely. A blinding flash that illuminated the deck like daylight. The shockwave lifted the ship, slammed her down again. Mayor, minor hull damage forward. We're still operational. Hamilton, then we retain and fight. The destroyer swung in a tight arc, chasing the trail back. Sonar reacquired target. Reyes, bearing 142, distance 800. Hamilton, fire. Another storm of hedgehogs. Silence, then 6 explosions in rapid sequence. The sea boiled, then went still. Mayor, confirmed destruction. That's 2 down. Hamilton, quietly, and 8 more waiting. In less than 2 hours, the England had turned a Wolfpack's opening strike into chaos. 2 submarines destroyed, 1 crippled, and a third fleeing into deep water. But victory carried a weight, a sense that the ocean itself was keeping score. Men stood on deck under starlight, faces pale, eyes haunted. Reyes, how many times can we keep doing this, sir? Hamilton, as many as it takes, until no one else has to. In the aftermath of victory, silence is deceptive. The ocean seems calm, forgiving, but beneath its skin, unseen currents move with purpose. For every enemy slain, another listens, learns, and waits. The Imperial Japanese Navy had lost 2 submarines in as many hours. But their Wolfpack, their phantom fleet, was not broken. It was learning. Somewhere beneath the thermocline, 3 surviving subs gathered in secret, their captains communicating by light flashes and coded bursts through the water. Each man a veteran of unseen wars, their faces lit by the dim glow of red lamps. Subcaptain 1. 2 boats gone. The Americans strike without warning. Subcaptain 2. They hunt by sound. We answer in silence. Subcaptain 3. We will not flee. We will strike back, from the deep. A plan was formed. To lure the England and her escorts into a false chase. To draw them over a submarine waiting in ambush. A trap built from patience and darkness. Sonar operator. Multiple contacts. Faint echoes bearing northwest. Could be more than one target. Hamilton, mark bearings. Plot intercept course. Mayor, say, it could be another decoy. Hamilton, if it's a decoy, we'll find out the hard way. The destroyer escort adjusted her heading. Engines rumbled low as she surged into the mist, chasing ghosts again. The England moved forward into the dark without fear, guided not by light, but by instinct, and by the trust between men who'd been to the edge and returned alive. At 0317 hours, sonar reported a famed contact. Sonar operator. Target bearing steady. Range 1800 yards. Depth 220. Reyes. Movement strange, say. Almost too steady. Like it's waiting for us. Hamilton. Or broken. Prepare attack pattern Baker. Ready the Hedgehog. The sea was perfectly calm. Stars reflected like shattered glass across the water. It felt wrong. Too quiet. Too still. Mayor, sir, recommend sonar sweep before we close in. Hamilton, negative. We're not giving him time to dive deeper. The England advanced. The target remained motionless. When the Hedgehog fired, the projectiles vanished into the black. And for once, there was no explosion. Nothing. Just silence. Sonar operator alarmed new contact. Directly beneath us. Close. Less than 500 yards. Hamilton. Hard rudder port. Evasive. Too late. From the depths, a torpedo streaked upward. Its wake flared phosphorescent under the ship's keel. It missed by 20 feet, detonating astern with a shattering roar. Metal screamed. Water cascaded over the aft deck. Mayor. Hit near the screws. Damage to port propeller. Hamilton. Seal compartments. Maintain speed. Smoke drifted aft. Men coughed, eyes stinging, but the engines kept turning. Hamilton. Locate that second sub. All sonar focus below. Reyes. His diving deep. 400 feet and going. Hamilton. He won't get away. Prepare depth charges. Each charge went deeper, chasing the fleeing submarine into the cold pressure below. Inside the sub, instruments shattered. Bolts tore loose. Water sprayed from ruptured seams. Japanese sub-officer. Depth 450. Damage aft. Batteries failing. Sub-captain. Blow ballast. Surface. The crippled sub broke surface less than a mile from England's stern. She rose like a wounded beast, black smoke pouring from her ruptured hull. Mayor, there she is. Hamilton, gunners, fire. Trace of fire raked the night. Shells punched through the rising sub's conning tower. Flames burst across her deck. Then, a violent flash as her own torpedoes cooked off. The explosion lit the sky in white fire. The third submarine was gone, but the damage to England was real, minor, repairable, yet symbolic. The enemy had drawn blood. It was no longer a perfect hunt. Now it was survival. Reyes, we're still seaworthy, sir. Hamilton, good. Then we keep moving. Mayor, say, how long can we keep this up? Hamilton, until they stop sending submarines. Hours later, a coded message arrived from command. Radio operator. From CINCPAC. Priority 1. Well done. Intelligence confirms 4 remaining submarines moving south. Proceed intercept. Reinforcements en route. Hamilton, so it isn't over. Reyes, no, sir. It's just beginning again. In the long chess game of the Pacific, every move invited another. For England, the next would be the deadliest yet. An encounter with the most advanced enemy submarine Japan had ever built. And the hunters would face their first real fate. That maybe, this time, the sea would not let them come home. For weeks, the England had ruled the unseen battlefield. Her crew, lean, salt-crusted, and sleepless, had become masters of a deadly art, finding death before it found them. But the enemy was evolving, and in the depths of the Philippine Sea, Japan had unleashed something new, a leviathan unlike any other. It was called I-52, the Dragon of the Deep. A long-range undersea titan designed not just to sink ships, but to survive anything the Americans could throw at it. Built in secret at Kure Naval Arsenal, I-52 was over 350 feet long, a floating fortress. She carried gold, weapons, and encrypted codes for Germany's U-boat command. But more terrifying was her design: reinforced hull plating, deep diving systems, twin electric engines that rendered her nearly silent. Inside, her captain, Commander Yuno, read a coded message from Tokyo. Yuno, in Japanese, subtitled American Destroyer Escort, England, is hunting in your sector. Find her. Sink her. End her legend. To the Japanese Navy, England had become more than a ship. She was a myth, a ghost that haunted their charts. And now, they meant to destroy the ghost with a dragon. Reyes, visibility shot to hell. Radars getting interference. Hamilton, good. If we can't see them, they can't see us. Mayor, assuming they are still out there. Hamilton, they're out there, Lieutenant. They always are. The storm became both enemy and ally. It hid the England from view, but it also cloaked her prey. Sonar returns blurred under the roar of waves. Every ping echoed wrong, distorted, stretched. In the chaos, men began to sense something unnatural. A vibration deep below, steady and slow. Sonar operator, whispering there's something down there, say. Big. Not moving like a sub should. Hamilton, show me. Sonar operator. Depth 700 feet, range 2,000 yards. It's just sitting there. Most submarines fled when discovered. This one did not. It stayed silent, confident, patient. Predator and prey switched roles with each passing minute. Mayor, sir, she's not running. That's strange. Hamilton, no. That's smart. Hamilton, she's forcing us to come closer. She wants a shot at our underbelly. Reyes, so we make her think she has it. Hamilton, all ahead 1/3. Reduce sonar pings to every 30 seconds. Keep our stern toward her. Mayor, say. Hamilton, if she wants to take a shot, she'll have to rise to do it. And when she rises, we strike. Minutes pass. Then, sonar clicks. A faint metallic echo. Sonar operator. Contact rising. Depth 550, 500. Hamilton, ready Hedgehogs. All hands stand by. The Dragon of the Deep was coming up to kill. But the England's crew had already written the ending. Hamilton, target within range. Fire. Mayor, hits registered. Confirmed underwater explosions. Reyes, she's flooding, sir. Massive air bubbles rising. Sonar operator. Incoming torpedoes. 2, maybe 3. Hamilton, hard rudder starboard. Emergency power. The England heaves through the waves, turning broadside. A torpedo streaks beneath her bow. Another explodes harmlessly in her wake. The third detonates early, a flash swallowed by the storm. Mayor, that was too close. Hamilton, close doesn't count out here. Only dead does. 700 feet down, the Dragon died. Crushed under the weight of the world it tried to master. For England, it was victory number 4. For the men, it was another ghost to carry. Reyes, she's gone. Hamilton, no one's ever really gone out here, Reyes. They just stopped sending signals. The battle was over, but the war beneath the waves was far from done. Each success only deepened the mystery of survival. Why did England endure when others vanished? Was it skill, luck, or something darker? A ship marked by fate to hunt death itself? As the destroyer escort turned homeward for brief repairs, no one aboard realized the enemy had already sent a new order across the Pacific: destroy the ship England at any cost. The death of I-52 was not just a loss, it was an insult. In the high halls of the Imperial Japanese Navy, pride burned brighter than reason. A single American ship, small, unarmored, an escort, had sunk 4 submarines in less than 2 weeks. And in the war culture of Japan's Sea Command, that was unforgivable. Behind locked doors, in a room heavy with cigarette smoke and shame, the revenge order was written. Vice Admiral Takagi, gentlemen, this cannot continue. Each submarine loss diminishes the Emperor's strength. We will respond in kind. He turned toward a map of the Pacific pinned with red pins and black flags. Takagi, assigned 6 submarines. 2 from Truk, 2 from Saipan, 2 from the Bonins. Their single mission. He pauses, lighting a cigarette. Destroy England. Coded in phrases of honor and death, The message pulsed through the night. Target ship, England. Intercept coordinates to follow. Sink without mercy. To each submarine commander, it was not an order. It was a vow. 6 steel ghosts slid from harbors across the Pacific, their engines whispering vengeance. For every submarine England had slain, a new one now hunted her. While Tokyo plotted revenge, England lay at rest. Her men patched steel with hands that had forgotten rest. They laughed quietly, but their eyes never softened. Reyes, leaning on railing, for down. They'll give us medals when this is done. Hamilton, half smiling, medals don't stop torpedoes. Reyes. Mayor, you think they'll come after us? Hamilton, they already are. I can feel it. In those brief days of calm, the England's decks gleamed again. New radar installed. Ammunition replenished. Fuel tanks filled. Her crew drank coffee on the fantail, watching tropical storms roll across the horizon. They did not know that 6 predators were closing in from 6 directions, each guided by whispers of vengeance carried on encrypted radio waves. Signal officer, reading unknown transmission. Japanese naval frequency. Mentions our call sign, sir. Hamilton, our call sign? How the hell? Reyes, they're coming, Captain. Hamilton, good. Saves us the trouble of looking. And so began the final, longest chase. The hunters of the Pacific were now the hunted. And in this new game, both sides would learn that obsession is a weapon sharper than steel. Sonar operator. Captain, I think we're being tracked. Hamilton, how sure? Sonar operator, they are matching our bearing exactly. Every change we make, they mirror it. Hamilton, then stop changing. Let's see what they do. Hamilton, that's one. And where there's one, Reyes, there's more. By midnight, 4 sonar contacts surrounded the England. 2 more, distant, closed from the east. It was a perfect circle, a tightening noose made of steel and silence. Mayor, 6 of them, say. 6 submarines. All converging. Hamilton, well, looks like we're famous. Reyes, orders. Hamilton, same as always. We hunt them first. The England throttled forward, a single ship charging into the jaws of 6. She had no illusions, no reinforcements, no way out. Only her guns, her crew, and a history written in courage and salt. Takagi, the Americans make her a legend. Let's make her a grave. And in that moment, halfway across the world, fate sealed the course for both hunter and hunted. The ocean would decide who deserved to live in its memory. The Pacific was vast, but that night it felt small. Around England, 6 Japanese submarines moved in a slow spiral, invisible but close. Each captain could almost sense the other, their steel hulls whispering through black water. For the first time, the hunter felt the circle close. Sonar operator. Captain, bearing 095, 130, 165. They're everywhere. Hamilton, plot them all. Mayor, sir, that's a ring. They've boxed us. Hamilton, then we break the ring before it tightens. They'd fought submarines before, but never 6 at once. Never this kind of silence, this deliberate patience. It was no longer a hunt. It was a siege. Hamilton, they expect us to panic, to run. We don't. We hit first, hard, and vanish. Reyes, like they taught us. Hamilton, no. Like we taught ourselves. The plan was madness wrapped in precision. Charge one contact, destroy it, dive behind its wreckage, use the chaos to escape the others. If it failed, they'd never even have time to scream. Sonar operator. Target steady. Range 1800. Hamilton, fire. Mayor, direct hits. She's breaking up. The ship rocks from concussion. A flash of oil and flame burst through the storm. One piece of the ring shattered, but 5 remained. And now they knew exactly where she was. Sonar operator. Multiple fish inbound. Bearing 150. Hamilton, evasive. Hardport. The ship rolls violently. 2 torpedoes pass beneath. A third explodes astern, lifting the stain clear of the sea. Mayor, damage aft. We've lost port screw control. Hamilton, compensate with starboard. Keep her moving. In the darkness, light came only from fire. Burning oil, tracer arcs, lightning over black water. Each flash revealed the face of a man who had forgotten Faye. Reyes, breathing hard, they're closing in pairs. Hamilton, good. Easier to kill that way. Hamilton, all batteries, full salvo, pattern Charlie. 2 submarines vanished, crushed in seconds. 3 left now, circling in disbelief. Radio tech, we've lost contact with boats 4 and 5. Commander, grim than the ghost lives. He grips the periscope handles, eyes blazing. Commander, signal all remaining units, converge on her bearing. We strike together or not at all. Mayor, engine steady at 70%. We can fight. Hamilton, then we fight. He knew every man's heartbeat now. He could read fatigue in their eyes, fear in their clenched jaws. But he also saw something else, belief, the kind that makes legends. At 0200 hours, England turned broadside into the moon. A decoy, bait for the last 3 hunters. Her guns loaded, her crew waiting in silence so deep they could hear the sea breathe. Then, faint sonar echoes, 3 of them, approaching in a line. Sonar operator, they're coming, say. All of them. Hamilton, let's finish what we started. For 48 hours, the running battle would rage. A storm of torpedoes, depth charges, and blind courage stretching across miles of sea. By dawn, one truth would stand clear. Legends are not born from victory, but from survival. When dawn never truly came, the crew of England knew they were in a storm the sun itself feared to touch. The Pacific heaved beneath her like a living thing, and for 2 days the destroyer fought not just enemies made of steel, but the sea itself. Hamilton, status. Mayor, engine still coughing, say. Hull integrity 78%. Reyes, we lost radar calibration during the last roll. Hamilton, then we fight blind. The men hadn't slept in 20 hours. Their faces were hollowed by salt and exhaustion, but there was no room for weakness here. Because out there, beyond the rain, 3 submarines still stalked them, patient and merciless. Oshiro, 3 boats left. The Emperor's hunters will not retreat. Navigator, England's course is erratic. She bleeds oil. Oshiro, then we follow the blood trail. Oshiro had been at sea since the first day of the war. He believed the ocean owed him a victory. And now, as he tracked the ghost destroyer, he swore that if the sea demanded sacrifice, he would give his life to sink her. Mayor, oil slick's giving us away. We can't hide. Hamilton, then we turn it into bait. Hamilton, plot a zigzag. Let them think we're crippled. Reyes, and when they bite. Hamilton, we close in and hit them with everything we've got. It was insanity wrapped in calculation. A cripple pretending to drown, waiting for sharks to draw close enough to kill. Sonar operator, contact, bearing 180. Hamilton, helm, bring us about. Fire forward battery. In the chaos of thunder and sea spray, one submarine broke surface. Her hull cracked and burning. She tried to dive again, but her back split open like glass. Mayor, incoming torpedoes, 2 bearings, port side. Hamilton, hard starboard. All engines. Each escape was a heartbeat closer to exhaustion. Each victory carried a wound that bled oil and steel. By the 30th hour, men had forgotten their names. They were one body now, a living machine of reflex and fear and courage. No orders were questioned. No pain was felt. Only the mission remained, sink them all. Reyes, whisper we're becoming her. Mayor, what? Reyes, the ship. We're part of her now. The England fights through us. In the long delirium between sleep and survival, myth was born. Oshiro, she slowed, preparing to strike. Sonar tech. Depth charges earlier destroyed the safest pattern, sir. Oshiro, good. We move beneath her wake. The ghost will never see us coming. But the destroyer's sonar operator, a 20-year-old kid from Kansas, caught the faintest echo in the static. A breath in the water. A ripple of fate. Sonar operator. Captain, there's something below. 200 feet. Moving fast. Hamilton, bearing. Sonar operator. Right under us. Hamilton, all depth charges. Drop full spread. The ocean lit from beneath. A column of fire burst through the waves. Oshiro's submarine, pride of the Emperor, was gone. 3 submarines had hunted her that morning. By sunset, only 2 remained. But England was breaking apart, her engines limping, her crew hollowed. And somewhere deep below, the lost enemy circled, patient as death. The day bled into night, and the night into something darker. Above the Pacific, clouds hung low and red, lit by distant fires, lightning, and war. Below, 2 Japanese submarines stalked the crippled destroyer, moving as one mind, one purpose, vengeance. Hamilton, how long until we lose the generator? Mayor, 2 hours, maybe less. She's running hot. Reyes, ain't that poetic? The sun dies, and so do we. Hamilton, quietly, not tonight. Captain Hamilton had fought so long that even exhaustion had lost meaning. His hands shook, but his eyes burned steady. A man whose soul had been tempered by the furnace of survival. Hamilton, they'll come when it's darkest. That's how I would do it. Mayor, then we make the dark our ally. Hamilton, aye. Let's give them a horizon full of ghosts. Ito, Oshiro is gone. His death demands blood. Exo, the destroyer bleeds. We have her in the shallows. Ito, good. We strike from both sides, one from shadow, one from flame. They had waited years for such a hunt. To them, it was more than war. It was a samurai's duel beneath the waves. And the destroyer above, though battered, was the final opponent worthy of their death. Sonar operator. Faint contact, bearing 170. Second contact, 015. Hamilton. 2 of them. They are closing in pairs again. Mayor, we can't outmaneuver both, say. Hamilton, then we don't. We make them fight each other. It was a desperate gamble, a dance of deception played in the blackest water on earth. Hamilton ordered false pings on both flanks, confusing the sonar echoes. To the hunters below, England now seemed to be 2 ships, one real, one illusion. The sea itself became the battlefield of shadows, lies, echoes, and ghosts. Sonar operator. Incoming. Multiple tracks. Hamilton. Hard to port. Drop decoys. Launch Hedgehogs now. The first torpedo missed. The second struck near the bow, a glancing blow that ripped steel but spared the hull. The third detonated early, caught by a drifting decoy. And the fourth never reached its mark. Sonar tech. Collision alarm. Bearing 120. Ito, what? That's... In the chaos of false echoes and confusion, the 2 hunters collided, their pride and precision undone by a single phantom ping. Mayor, say, sonar's got 1 dead in the water, bearing 085. Hamilton, close in. Let's end it. The night erupted into molten light. Depth charges fell like falling stars, and from the deep came the roar of ruptured steel. A geyser of flame shot skyward. The crippled sub was gone. But the second sub, Ito's command, still lived. She slithered into the deep, silent, waiting for her moment. And now she knew what England was capable of. The duel had narrowed to 1 against 1. Hamilton, 1 left. Mayor, aye. The hardest one. Reyes, say, what happens if she's better than us? Hamilton, quietly, then history ends here. The Pacific that night looked like the surface of another planet. Half flame, half rain, and all fury. Each explosion carved new craters of fire upon the sea. Men on deck fought not just with weapons, but with their will to stay standing. No one spoke of survival anymore. They spoke of finishing it. Somewhere in the chaos, he thought of home, of green fields, of quiet mornings, of the promise that this storm would end. But then he looked again at the Black Sea, and he understood something deeper. There would always be storms. What mattered was the ship that faced them. Hamilton, keep her steady. This night belongs to us. Hour 28 approached. The storm would fade, the fires would cool, but this moment, this night of steel and fire, would echo forever in the hearts of men who refused to die quietly. When the fires died and the waves began to fall quiet, both hunters drifted into the same darkness. One above, England, wounded but alive. One below, Ito's submarine, silent, waiting. The sea held its breath. The duel was about to begin, Mayor, no contacts for 10 minutes. Maybe she's gone. Hamilton, no. She's down there, listening, waiting for us to exhale. Reyes, how long can she stay under? Hamilton, longer than we can stay sane. The Pacific stretched like a black mirror, unbroken except for the faint ripples of oil drifting from England's hull. Every man aboard felt the same pressure, not of depth, but of silence. Ito, battery at 60%. Forward tubes ready. XO, they are drifting, sir. Perfect range for an ambush. Ito, patience. Let them think the ocean is theirs again. Ito's pulse matched the rhythm of the propellers above him. He imagined the destroyer, crippled, blind, and the glory that would come when his torpedoes found her belly. He had survived collision and chaos. Now only precision remained. He presses his hand to the periscope lens, eyes closing. Ito, when we strike, it will be like thunder beneath the world. Sonar operator. Sir, no movement yet. Should we resume normal speed? Hamilton, negative. Kill engines. Mayor, drift. Hamilton, drift. Let her think we're dead. It was a deadly kind of waiting, each man listening for the heartbeat of an enemy he could not see. Minutes turned to hours. Rain hissed softly on steel. The destroyer became part of the sea itself, a corpse with eyes open. Sonar tech, bearing constant. Target dead in the water. Ito, now. Fire 1, fire 2. Sonar operator. Torpedoes inbound. Range 900. Hamilton, all ahead flank. Hard to stab it. The sea erupted again, but England was still afloat. Her hull screamed in protest, yet she tamed, hunting back along the torpedo tracks. Hamilton, we've got her trail. Load pattern Delta. XO, they found us. Ito, crash dive. Depth 250. Ito dove into the abyss, deeper than any safe chart allowed. Above, the destroyer's charges fell like anvils, crushing water into fire. Every explosion was a hammer blow on the submarine's spine. Sonar tech, forward ballast damaged. Ito, hold her steady. We will not surface until the ghost is gone. For 2 hours they circled each other through layers of darkness. The destroyer guessed. The submarine counter-guessed. Every ping, every detonation, every scream of metal was a note in the longest, darkest symphony the ocean had ever heard. Hamilton, we're running out of charges. Mayor, 2 patterns left, sir. Hamilton, that'll do. Plot a feint. Make them think we've lost her. Hamilton gambled everything on instinct. He left an opening, a perfect line for a submarine to strike, and waited. Ito, surface angle perfect. Fire 3, fire 4. Sonar operator, we've got her. New wake heading 180. Hamilton, drop both patterns. Now. The last of the depth charges fell into blackness, and the sea answered with a roar that split the night. A column of flame rose where no light should exist. The submarine Ito commanded was gone, broken in half, swallowed by the deep that had once been his ally. Mayor, no more contacts. Reyes, she's done, say. Hamilton, aye. For a moment, there was no sound but rain on steel. Then the men of England looked at one another and understood. 6 submarines, 6 hunters, gone in less than 2 weeks. They had not just survived the impossible, they had changed the very shape of the war beneath the waves. Our 29 arrived with the first pale hint of dawn. The duel was over, but the legend of USS England had only just begun. The sea was calm again, too calm. After 40 hours of thunder, fire, and blood, the silence felt heavier than battle itself. USS England drifted through a graveyard of her own making. 6 black scars on the Pacific, each one a tomb. Hamilton, Mayor, report. Mayor, hull holding, sir. Pumps still fighting the leaks. Port engine out. Starboard's coughing but running. Hamilton, enough to get us home. Mayor, if the ocean lets us. Every sound aboard now carried memory. The hum of the generator, once comforting, was the echo of battle. The creak of the hull, a reminder that the ship was alive because men had refused to die. Reyes, say, do you ever wonder why we're still here? Hamilton, because the ocean hasn't made up her mind yet. The England had lost no man to the enemy's torpedo, But every sailor aboard had given something: sleep, youth, sanity. Some stared into the waves and saw faces that were never there. Others spoke in whispers to the ship itself, as if she could hear. "Reyes, you took 6 of them, girl. Guess that makes you a legend now." Below, the ocean kept its secrets. The submarines slept in silence, their crews frozen in time, enemies now indistinguishable from the sea they once commanded. The war moved on, but their story remained here, written in salt and pressure. "Operator, message ready, say." "Hamilton, send it." The transmission was brief, stripped of poetry or pride. "Enemy submarines destroyed. Requesting escort. Condition critical." No victory speech. Just fact, cold and absolute. But somewhere in the coded silence between words, the weight of history hung heavy. As night returned, the men began to see shapes in the waves, illusions born of exhaustion. A periscope here, a shadow there. But they were only ghosts, drawn by memory, and perhaps by respect. "Reyes, Captain, you ever think they are still out there, watching us?" "Hamilton, if they are, let them watch. We've earned the right to sail home." "Operator, all 6 submarines lost. Confirmed." "Commander, 6? That cannot be." "Admiral, it is. The sea herself has turned against us." Half a world away, the news struck like a phantom blow. The Imperial Navy, once invincible beneath the waves, now knew that an American destroyer escort, barely larger than a fishing boat, had done the impossible. It was not the loss of steel that wounded them. It was the loss of certainty. "Mayor, navigation says 2 days to base, sir." "Hamilton, feels longer." "Reyes, feels like we've lived a lifetime." "Hamilton, we have." The destroyer limped across waters now strangely still. The war around her raged on. Carriers fought. Fleets burned. But hey, there was peace. Not the peace of victory, but the peace of those who had given everything and somehow remained. In her log, England would record the events with quiet precision. Dates, bearings, tonnage sunk. But what no log could capture was the sound that lingered long after. The heartbeat of engines in rhythm with human will. The whisper of waves against scorched metal. And the low hum of a legend being born. Hour 30 arrived with the first light over the Pacific. For the first time in weeks, the horizon held no enemies, only the long road home. For weeks, they had lived in the language of depth charges and sonar pings, a world of steel and silence. Now, the promise of land returned like a half-forgotten dream. The England was no longer just a ship. She was a survivor, dragging 6 ghosts behind her wake. "Operator, sir, we've picked up a beacon. Base command, shortwave transmission." "Hamilton, patch it through." "Voice, radio USS England, this is Pearl Operations. We've received your report. Confirm all 6 targets destroyed. Repeat, confirm 6 submarines." "Hamilton, quietly confirmed." "Voice, radio, God Almighty. Proceed to Ulethi for assessment and repair. You've earned your rest." No cheer erupted. No shout of triumph. Just the hollow realization. It was over. They had done what no ship had done before. And now they would live with it. "Reyes, smells like rain. Haven't smelled that since we left base." "Mayor, smells like home." Reyes softly forgot what that was. For most men, war was a place they went. For these men, it had become the only place they existed. Every sunrise now felt like trespassing on peace. Some had written to sweethearts long before the first depth charge fell. Others never wrote at all. Satan, no one could understand the world they lived in. Young sailor, whispering, "Guess you'll hear about us in the papers now." They had fought beneath the surface, unseen. Now the world would see them, but never know them. By mid-afternoon, land appeared, a blur of palms, cranes, and ships at anchor. Ulethi Atoll, the beating heart of the Pacific Fleet. To the crew of England, it looked unreal, a floating city, alive with sound and movement, untouched by the ghosts of the deep. "Reyes, look at that, sir. Real ships, real people." "Hamilton, feels strange, doesn't it?" "Reyes, feels like waking up from a dream I don't want to end." No band played. No fanfare greeted them. Only quiet respect. Sailors saluting sailors who had looked into the abyss and returned. Officer, Captain Hamilton, congratulations, say. I've read the report. 6 submarines in 12 days. I didn't believe it. Hamilton, neither did we. In the stillness of Ulysses Harbor, England became both relic and revelation. She had sailed into legend, but legends come with a cost. The ship herself groaned like an old soul, each weld and sky a line of scripture written in fire. Worker, this one's been through hell. Spruance, 6 submarines. You understand what that means, Captain? Hamilton, yes, say. It means luck, timing, and men who never gave up. Spruance, it means you've rewritten naval warfare. We'll be studying your tactics for years. Hamilton, we were just trying to stay alive. Spruance, history doesn't care about intent, son. Only outcome. The men of England sat under the stars that night, listening to a voice from another world, a singer in New York, her words drifting across an ocean of memory. For the first time in months, they smiled without guilt. Reyes, you think anyone back home will ever believe this? Mayor, doesn't matter if they do. We know. The war would go on, battles still to fight, lives still to lose. But for the crew of England, something had changed. They had looked into the darkest part of the ocean and found a light that would never go out. Word spread through the Pacific like wildfire. Men on carriers, cruisers, and submarines spoke the name England with awe and with disbelief. In a war of titans, a single destroyer escort had become a myth made of steel and salt. Our 31 marked the beginning of legend and the end of innocence.